In today's video, we continue on with our NHL season preview series. Today, we finish off the Pacific Division by looking at the newest NHL franchise, the Seattle Kraken. They made some pretty big spending in the UFA market and a new head coach. We'll discuss what this team looks like and what to expect this season coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have another season preview to look at here today, this time completing our run through the Pacific Division by looking at the Seattle Kraken. Now, the Kraken are coming off a disappointing season, and we saw them make some pretty significant changes. They made a couple of high-profile UFA signings. We have a new coach. We're obviously going to have a different looking lineup this year, so let's take a look and see how things went. Now, if you're new to this series, essentially we're going to do a quick recap of last year. First, take a look at how the roster has changed, additions, subtractions, any players that are going to be up for new contracts that we might see throughout the year, analyze the projected roster, and then any questions facing this franchise going into the campaign. So last year, the Kraken finished with 81 points, which was fifth in their division, with a record of 34, 35, and 13, just a little bit under 500. Obviously, a step back from the year before, where they had a 100-point regular season and won a round in the playoffs, lost in the second round in Game 7. They only scored 217 goals last year. Their goals for were down, which was 29th in the league. Goals against was pretty decent still at 236, which was 9th best. The power play was okay, 20.7%, 17th best in the league. The PK was 20th best at 78.8. So overall, the main thing that was down was scoring. The year before, they were one of the higher scoring teams in the NHL. And to be completely honest, I fully did not expect that to continue, considering that they had so many players hit career highs in goals, shooting percentage. It was going to be impossible, in my opinion, to sustain that with so many players hitting career high numbers. Like, you can't have them continue at that pace. It just didn't seem logical to me. And while we saw a major step back. So will they be able to bounce back and be closer to what they were 2 years ago? We'll discuss that here in a minute. The leading scorers last year was Jared McCann at 62 points. Oliver Bjorkstrand at 59. Vince Dunn at 46. Jordan Eberle at 44. And Eeli Tolvanen at 41. So in their brief NHL history, they've had 3 seasons under their belt now. They've missed the playoffs 2 out of the 3 times. Like I said, 2 years ago, going to the playoffs, winning a round against the defending Cup champions at that, the Avalanche, lost in round 2 in Game 7. Of course, we saw Dave Hakstol be let go as head coach after 3 years on the job in Seattle and has been replaced by Dan Bylsma. Of course, Dan Bylsma was already in the organization coaching their AHL Coachella Valley Firebirds team, which has had a lot of success. Obviously, a lot of the younger players moving through the organization would already have a lot of familiarity there, which is great to see. Bylsma is not new to the NHL either, of course. He's got a long history. Of course, Bylsma is a Stanley Cup champion head coach from his first run as the Penguins bench boss when he took over there back in the 08-09 season. So he's coached multiple teams. He's had multiple stints. I mean, good run in Pittsburgh. He's coached elsewhere as well and spent some time in the minors and kind of built himself back up. And in this case with the organization, I think it makes a lot of sense, given how much youth they expect to go through this organization the next few years, that he gets an opportunity. Plus, like I said, he's led the AHL team to great success during their 3-year history. So it makes total sense to me that he was going to be the logical choice. Going into the season, cap space-wise, they're pretty well tapped out. They have just over $4,000 in space, which is nowhere near enough to really do anything with. Now, looking at the additions and subtractions this year, as far as players that are no longer with the Kraken that we saw last year, a couple of veteran defensemen departed in Justin Schultz and Brian Dumoulin. We also saw a couple of forwards depart as well in Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Kyler Yamamoto. Chris Driedger, who has been with the club since their expansion draft, also went back to Florida, so he's no longer with the organization either. So nothing too crazy. Some veterans on defense leave, a couple of forwards. Nothing too crazy. Coming into the organization were a couple of high-profile signings, though. Like I mentioned, they pick up Chandler Stevenson on a 7-year deal from the Vegas Golden Knights, and they pick up Brandon Montour on a 7-year deal from the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Both players, in my opinion, are good guys, good players, but I think they do come with some risk. Stevenson, to me, had the luxury of playing with Vegas and a lot of good players. I don't know that he can duplicate that success elsewhere, to be completely honest. He was a Stanley Cup champion in Washington as well, played a much smaller role at that time. Stevenson's a good skater, he's a good pivot, but I don't know. I think he might be overpaid and is, in my opinion, one of the most overpaid guys in free agency this year. Montour theoretically isn't, but my concern with him is that he's been through so many injuries the past couple of years. Is can he be that same quality of player that allowed him to be successful to earn that contract? The talent is definitely there. I do think he's worth it in a lot of ways. My concern is the health. So we'll see how that works out. As far as rookies go that are expected to make a bigger impact, theoretically, Shane Wright still basically a rookie because he hasn't had a full season. So we're going to put him in this category as well as Riker Evans on defense. I think both guys have the opportunity to stick with the big club for a full season and really help take this team hopefully to another level and then really take their own individual games to a big stage of their development where they can kind of compete and work their way into a higher role. Looking at players that are going to be eligible for contract extensions that we might see throughout the campaign. In the forward group, you've got Yanni Gourde, Brandon Tanev, you've got Will Borgen, Josh Mahura, and goalie Joey Decord. Decord, to me, makes a lot of sense if you can extend him. I think he's going to be an important piece moving forward. He's been way more consistent than Grubauer. The other guys, it's difficult to say. I think Yanni Gourde will be interesting to bring him back. The other guys are debatable, and I do wonder if that could be an after the season decision. On the RFA side as well, Riker Evans and Ty Cartier both need new deals as well. I would suspect they'll be re-signed and extended. Whether or not it happens during the season or it comes after, difficult to say. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot when it comes to this club for contracts throughout the year. Maybe a couple, nothing too crazy. So your projected roster going into the campaign, again, between the pipes, you got Philip Grubauer and Joey Decord. On the back end, on defense, you've got Brandon Montour now with Vince Dunn. You still got Jamie Alexiak and Adam Larson. And, of course, you got Will Borgen, Riker Evans, Josh Mahura probably in that number 7 spot. So, overall, you lose a couple of veterans with Dumoulin and Schultz, and then you move in Montour and you give a bigger role to Evans. That's basically what happens here. So, I don't expect anything too drastic. If anything, the D might be able to help a little bit more with the offense. And produce a little bit more from the back end. Up front, you're probably looking at top line, possibly Matty Beniers, Bjorkstrand, and McCann. That could be your top line. Stevenson likely going to be in the number 2 center spot. Probably play with Burakovsky and Jaden Schwartz. You get Yanni Gourde, Brandon Tanev, Eeli Tolvanen, Shane Wright, Jordan Eberle, Ty Cartier. Hard to imagine, I don't know that Eberle or Wright really are going to be on the 4th line. I know these combinations were taken from dailyfaceoff.com's line projector. To be honest, they do have a lot of depth there in the forward group, and it's going to depend on who's going at what level. We saw Shane Wright have a good finish to the year when he get to play games in Seattle late last season, but he get to play a top 6 role. I don't know that it's really in his interest to be a 4th line centerman. To be honest, I think that's why I was so surprised that they signed Stevenson to the kind of money that they did, because they signed Stevenson to be a number 2 center. He's not going to make that kind of money playing on the 3rd line. And even if they don't bring back Yanni Gourde, and then you have Wright move up with him and Beniers being your top 2 and Stevenson drop down to number 3, that's still not really, based on how the money is being divvied out, really make a lot of sense. So I don't really understand why Stevenson was paid as heavily as he was. Does this show us that the team has concerns over Wright's ability to nail down that spot? For a pick that was taken so high, I do wonder. This is a pivotal year for Shane Wright, and if he's not going to be given an opportunity to play in the top 6, I don't see him thriving, unfortunately. But that's your roster that you see. The questions facing the team: are you going to get good goaltending? Is Grubauer going to be able to pull his weight here, or is Decord going to outplay him again? So that's a big thing. How are these UFA signings going to look with Montour and Stevenson? They might be okay in the beginning. I do still have concerns over them now. And then, like I said, you need to have your kids take a step forward, and Shane Wright's not going to do that on a 4th line. So I'm not sure how they're going to do this here. It seems to me, if you look at some of the veterans that are playing ahead of them in the top 6 or 9, maybe they have to move somebody out. I don't know. To be honest, I don't see this team being any better. They really didn't do a ton. Stevenson and Montour are good players, but are they really going to move the needle? I don't know. You look at this Pacific Division where you got Edmonton, Vancouver, and you get Vegas and even LA. Like, I don't see them being able to improve upon last year's positioning. At best, you get 5th place. I really don't see how they can get up any higher unless other teams surprise us and shock us and just don't meet expectations. But in all honesty, I think Ron Francis did a good job with the new coach. He brought in some decent players, but I think he overpaid, and I don't think that it really moves the needle for this franchise. Sorry to say, this only way the needle moves for this franchise is the youth, like Beniers and Wright, take a big step. And is Wright going to be given an opportunity? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.